there's this really old story of the arrogant individual being punished, whether it's by their own hand, by their own folly, finally having to face their own mistakes, or by something larger than them, which is usually in lore or whatever, it's a deity of some kind. But in reality, maybe it's a pandemic. It's something larger than them. So there's that dynamic, and you see this in this movie. You see this in all the kind of like the apocalypse movies, whatever. Someone makes a mistake. Oh, Chernobyl, whatever. Here you go. There's a great example of human error, messing around with things that are very powerful and causing serious destruction, and then compounding the destruction because of the inability to kind of rationally deal with our mistakes. Instead, you have all these other things, which is like, oh, cover it up, or you're not allowed to question that, or you shouldn't be, that's out of your rank, or whatever. All these things that don't match up with our ability to create very powerful, very impactful things. Ooh.
Well, Chernobyl was one aspect of the fall of the Soviet Union. And so it wasn't the only one, but it was that disaster and its cover up was part of the disintegration of an entire country. And so there's a reason why people cover things up. Because if people lose faith in systems too quickly and too fast, things can disintegrate very quickly.
That's true.
All that being said, it's something to consider.
Yeah, it doesn't really help though, right? Because if you go too far in trying to cover things up, it only breeds more suspicion. Like you see that now with the weird, insane, crusade against Rogan's podcast and all the misinformation, fear mongering, that really seems to just compound suspicion towards the institutions and the figures that are trying so hard to get you to be suspicious of anything but them. And it does have this weakening effect. I find myself looking at these figures and these institutions, what are the legacy media or like certain journalists and what have you. And I just see them, it's not even this kind of like sense of rage or anger or mistrust in them. It's just a kind of, I see weakness. It's like you can smell the weakness after a certain point because they really have lost control over the landscape, and the kind of, that kind of doubling down and very like accusatory and admonishing tone only seems like it serves to try to grasp onto a shred of power and to try to misdirect people's focus. It really doesn't work at all. It's such a bad strategy to try to retain any kind of credibility or authority. So, it goes both ways, that like hiding things to retain faith in the system, but also not having enough of that kind of like, hey, no, we don't have everything figured out. I think that would have been, that was a totally different option that could have been taken for dealing with ever evolving information regarding a new virus, which is we're constantly updating this information. So what we're telling you right now is what we know right now. And this is very well subject to change. Not this is what it is now. If you question this, you're banned. If you say anything otherwise, you're a terrible, immoral person. And actually, we just changed that, and quietly sliding to the next thing. You can't do that, man. You can't do that, especially in this landscape now, the media landscape where everything's around for so long.
Power, governance, leadership, implicit in that is something like, well, it is my duty to tell people what's right and what's not. There should have been, in my opinion, some more. Things have changed. things have changed more drastically than I think people realize yet. I don't know how far it's going to change, but I actually do believe that it is. Like, the amount of distrust, and you can see this in polling, and you can see this if you just talk to other human beings. The amount of distrust in institutions has continued to accelerate. And that's not always good. And that's not always,
No.
especially if there's, it would be productive if there was reform afterwards, but I'm not sure if that's what we're heading towards.
No, we're seeing
It seems to
doubling
me more
down. Like it's not, there's that option, right? Which is we're going to change course. Or, better yet would be we admit as, the institution, whatever it is, legacy media, whatever it is, like there has to be a moment of reckoning. There has to be an acknowledgement of the failure that has caused the distrust in order to mend that and have any chance. You cannot just pretend it didn't exist. That pisses people off so much more than coming out and saying, we messed up the coverage on this. And you saw that there was, I think it was Denmark. I can't remember what the country was, a Nordic country. Their publication, some newspaper or something, actually ran some story saying that we admit that we mismanaged the coverage of the pandemic. Now, I didn't read the article. I'm just, that's the headline. Maybe the article is like, just kidding. I don't know. But that's actually closer in the right direction, which is you have to acknowledge that failure. You have to do that, or else why would people trust that the next thing you say isn't an extension of the same failing strategy? So there's that, but I don't see that. I see a doubling down. I see a demonization too of people that won't let go of the failures that have been accrued and not acknowledged. How dare you continue to hang on to all those failures and bring them up? Like, we're here now. You can't do that. You can't do that. It's disrespectful to people also. It disrespects people's dignity. It disrespects what people can see with their eyes and hear with their ears. And people don't like that. And there's no reason why you should demand trust from people when you tell them to distrust their own eyes and ears constantly and condemn them when they use those, their own senses to make sense of the world.